Hearts of Fire and The Nanny won't be seen tonight. Please stay tuned for this special presentation.
Hi there. This is Billy Core from the Carolina Circle Mall Wiki. It is Thursday, March 28th of 2013. And shut up, phone. And this is a video I've been anticipating making for a couple of weeks now. I have over the years in my YouTube and internet career, I have been frequently asked, why am I such a nostalgic person? As y'all know, I have a very deep fondness of the 1990s and my childhood in the 1990s. And a lot of people are confused by that. Why do I do this? They're either just curious just to know, or just being brutally mean. You're stuck in the past. Come back to the present. And you will not be hearing that voice ever again, okay? That's the last time you'll be hearing that. So, whether you're curious or just being plain mean, for the next, I don't know how long, I'm going to discuss why I am such a nostalgic person. And in order to do this, we need to go back in time to January of 2005. George W. Bush was still president. Johnny Carson had sadly just passed away. And I was 15 years old. And I was in the 8th grade. And I was really into roads, hence my name on YouTube, Road Geek. It's just, and at the time, I'd been like this for a couple of years at the time. And I would go, my dad would take me down the road, any road, mostly interstates, it's what I prefer, like Interstate 40, throughout Greensboro and sometimes even Winston-Salem. And I would take my camera and or video camera and take pictures of various road signs. Not really like a stop sign or anything, mostly like those big green signs you see over the road or to the side of the road that say like exit such and such. Now, that was all fine and good, and I was enjoying it. But then one morning, I believe it was a Saturday morning in January of 2005, I woke up one morning, which is good because or else I'd be dead. I turned my TV on, and our cable provider here in Greensboro is Time Warner Cable. Well, I discovered that Time Warner Cable had added a new channel to their digital package. It was a channel called Nick Gas, a secondary station to Nickelodeon. And on Nick Gas, it was pretty much a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week marathon of game shows that aired on Nickelodeon back in the 90s. Shows I grew up with, such as Family Double Dare, Nickelodeon Guts, Nick Arcade, Legends of the Hidden Temple, Figure It Out. And this was the first time I saw most of these shows in many years. And and it really didn't happen then. A few more things would have to happen before I went all nostalgic for the rest of my life, but that's what started it. And I was feeling something that I'd never felt before. Nostalgia. Well, it also turns out, not long before this, I I actually a little bit after that, what I was about to discuss, we'll discuss after this. But I happened to, a few weeks later, come across some of my old computer games. I found, I believe, Freddy Fish, Fatty Bear's Birthday Surprise, Putt Putt Joins the Parade, all those good games. And I'd play these every now and then, but for some reason they were starting to feel a little bit more special for some reason. Unfortunately, I really didn't have a good computer to play them on. All I had at the time was my Dell Dimension 2350 desktop, which I still have, and my Dell Inspiron 1150 laptop, both running Windows XP. Now, these games would run on them just fine if you change a few little compatibility settings. But I wanted something a little bit more powerful in the nostalgia department for these old games. So I started searching on eBay, and I found trying to find an old Windows 95 desktop to play these games on. Now, I didn't find anything at first, but I will elaborate on this later. But come on, Chris, I'm doing a video here. I had found out about 6 months before this that an old mall called Carolina Circle Mall right near my house, a mall that I had grown up going to back in the 90s, was slated for demolition at any time. And so I figured, I better see if I can get my dad to take me down there and take some pictures of it. Now, I hadn't really, this was not for the sake of nostalgia, it was just for preservation. I figured, hey, these might come in handy someday, I don't know. And the mall had been sitting vacant since 2002, so it had been sitting there for about, I guess, 3 years, abandoned. And on February 21st, 2005, my dad took me down to the old Carolina Circle Mall in our 1995 Honda Accord, which we bought new. And we went there and I started taking pictures. I even took a picture of the old Toys R Us across the street. I was going well, but then things got even better. My dad pulled the car up to the old main entrance to the mall. Now, it had been boarded up at one time, but vandals had recently broken through the boarding and found their way in there just to sadly vandalize. But actually it kind of worked to my advantage here, because from the passenger seat of our old 1995 Honda Accord, I could see, for the first time in many, many years, the inside of the old Carolina Circle Mall. And that got my juices going right then and there. Oh, let me turn my computer off here. And that night, I got on my old Dell Dimension 2350 and started browsing the web. I did a Google search for Carolina Circle Mall info or anything on it, just because I was pretty curious after what I saw that afternoon. Well, I came across this site called the Post-Apocalyptic Mall of Doom and Stuff .com. I think it was .com, and I was in for a treat. This site was run by these kids. I don't know if they were criminals or not. They probably were. They would regularly go into Carolina Circle Mall. I believe they lived in Asheboro, but they would come up to Greensboro and explore the old Carolina Circle Mall. And they took their camera with them and took at least 50 to maybe even 75 pictures, still pictures, of Carolina Circle Mall. And they posted them to their website. Man, oh man, that was an eventful night for me. And unfortunately, that website is no longer around. It's been gone for many, many years. But anyway, that next morning, I went to school. My school, Pendle Hill Christian School. And I was in language arts class. My teacher at the time was Miss April. Very, very nice person. And she, and during class, while we were working on some book work, she turned the radio on to 99.5 WMAG, our the adult contemporary station here in Greensboro. And they were playing a song called Two Hearts by Phil Collins. A song that doesn't really seem like much to a lot of people, and it didn't to me at the time, but then it struck me. I would always hear that song almost every time I would go to Carolina Circle Mall. And I was feeling more nostalgic than ever. And it was at that moment, on the morning of Tuesday, February 22nd, 2005, I decided to dedicate the rest of my life to exploring nostalgia. And it's been going on ever since then, and there's more. Later that day, I told my friends at school the story of Carolina Circle Mall, and later that week, that Friday on the 25th, my dad took me back to the old Carolina Circle Mall building to take more pictures. When I went there on the 21st, I only took pictures of the side facing Highway 29, but this time I wanted to get pictures of the side facing 16th Street. One second. And I took those pictures, and that night I got back on the internet, and I found this website. I don't know if it's still around or not. I need to check into it. It was called From Woolworths to Walmarts, and it was full of stories, history, and pictures of old discount stores from back in the day, like Woolworths, Kmart, what else? Maybe King's, Rose's, and that got going again. And I was feeling really good again. And that next day, that Saturday, this was a pretty eventful week for me. I discovered that our local PAC station, I believe it's Ion now, it was they were showing old episodes of America's Funniest Home Videos with Bob Saget from the 90s. And once again, nostalgia started rolling. Now, remember when I was discussing trying to find a Windows 95 computer? Well, since I was now really into nostalgia, I really needed to step up my game to find a Windows 95 computer. And since I was getting nostalgic from my childhood, I started thinking back to my old Packard Bell Legend 822 CDT that my parents bought new in December of 1995 when I was only 6 years old. And in fact, there it is right here on my laptop. I figured if I'm going to get a Windows 95 computer, it's got to be a Packard Bell. And so it took me about a month of trying to find a Packard Bell computer, and during that month I was also working on my other nostalgia needs, mostly television related. I was watching Nick Gas pretty much 24/7 now. I was glued to that channel. I remember watching Nickelodeon Gas every night at 9 o'clock and 9:30, which is a television show I I was a big fan of circa 1994. In fact, when it actually came to the Greensboro Coliseum along with Nick Arcade in March of '94, and I got to go to it. Never forget that day. And where was I? And I was still gathering all the pictures I could of Carolina Circle Mall. And there was this message board on the Other Stream website. A very, very good website. Google it. A lot of it's mostly a blog about that a guy's made, but he's a pretty cool guy. And he had a message board on there, and there was a topic on there about Carolina Circle Mall. So I signed up for an account there and started posting there. And there was this guy there named Corey Maiden, I believe his name was. And he claimed he had a picture of the old Carolina Circle Mall carousel from sometime in the 90s. And you better believe I jumped on that offer like mad. I sent him an email asking if he could send me a copy of that picture. Well, a couple of weeks later, on March 17th of 2005, I got an email from him. And it included that picture right there on my laptop, which is gone now. I might post it in the video, but you better believe I knew that nostalgia was for me when I saw that picture. I was feeling something that I never felt before. It was just amazing seeing the old carousel, the stores around it, all of the people eating there at the food court. It was like nothing else, and I emailed him asking when it had been taken, when that picture had been taken, and he said it was in either 1992 or 1993. Still don't know which one it is. And by the way, that picture of the carousel, over 8 years later, is still the only picture I have of the mall's carousel. I have never been able to find another one. I know there's got to be other ones out there other than this one, but someday I'll find another one. But until then, this is pretty much the best picture you could ever get of that carousel. Anyway, back to the computer. I did another eBay search on I think in mid to late March of 2005, and I found a Packard Bell that looked very, very interesting. It didn't look like my original Packard Bell 822. That one was a mini tower model. This one was a desktop model, one of those that lays flat on your desk. However, it had the exact same hardware inside of it and the exact same software that came with my original. And that Packard Bell was called a Packard Bell Legend 1510 Supreme. I knew right then and there I had to have it. The price for the computer itself was $50, and it cost $20 for shipping. And surprisingly and coincidentally, it was located in Thomasville, North Carolina, which is just about 45 minutes southwest of here in Davidson County. And so that one day I purchased it. I knew I just had to have it. And I want to see what date that was. Let me look at my calendar here on my computer. It was delivered to my house on March 28th, coincidentally 8 years ago today of this video, March 28th of 2005. And it included the computer, all the software, all the books, the mouse that came with it, and the keyboard that came with it, and a monitor, which unfortunately UPS had smashed it up in shipping, and so whenever I turned it on, the the picture was all garbled and scrambled up like an old TV from the 70s with bad vertical and horizontal hold. So I had to junk it, unfortunately, but I hooked up a 15-inch Dell LCD monitor to it that was on my Dell Dimension 2350, and I fired that computer up, and once again, nostalgia hit me like a brick. This was the first time I had used Windows 95 or a Packard Bell in at least 5 years, since my original one had been given away back in 2000. I played my putt-putt games, my Fatty Bear game, and I even played some of the Packard Bell bundled software that I hadn't played since my original, including My First Encyclopedia, and for those of you who've seen my videos, none of your business. The Kid Story games and Toonland with Howie Mandel. And wow. Not to mention the Packard Bell Navigator software that came with it. It just blew my mind, the nostalgia I was feeling. And things got even better. In either late March or early to mid-April of 2005, I was going through some old junk in my living room. And I found a videotape that, gosh, I wish I had it with me. Is that it? Nope. Oh, that right here. I found a videotape that was, that was labeled, Rugrats Marathon. 8 hours. And I really wasn't sure what exactly was on it. And I stuck it in my VCR, and I realized what I had stumbled upon would be the greatest VHS tape I would ever own. You see, back on November 27th of 1994, my 5th birthday, my parents recorded an 8-hour Rugrats marathon for me off Nickelodeon. And I probably watched it a few times after that tape had been made, and then I forgot about it, and it was stuck under our TV for over 10 years. And by some miracle, the tab, the Write Protect tab had been broken off. I don't know how that happened. We had on all the tapes we ever recorded, we never pulled that off. And so this is still a mystery to this day. But when I stuck the tape in there, man, it had all the episodes, 16 episodes of Rugrats, including the original commercials. That's right, the original commercials. And this was the first time I'd seen a lot of these, see what life was like being a child growing up in the early to mid 90s. A lot of this stuff I had completely forgotten about, like Moon Shoes. This was stuff advertised on the tape, like Moon Shoes, Connects, the Moto Sykes, and plenty of other stuff, and including all the original Nickelodeon promos. Ever since that day, for the past 8 years, I have watched this tape non-stop more than any other VHS tape in my huge collection over the years. And I don't think I'll ever find anything that can top it. And then, after Easter in 2005, about a week after Easter, I got stricken with a serious cold virus. And I was bedridden for about a week. And on the second day of my cold, I woke up at about 4 o'clock in the morning. I didn't make any chocolate pudding, don't worry. I didn't lose control of my life. But I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't get back to sleep. I was too congested. my NyQuil had worn off, but I realized this tape right here was still in my VCR. So I stuck the tape in the VCR and started watching it, and man, that really cheered me up. Not to mention, right before that, no, actually I didn't watch this tape until about 5 o'clock that morning. From 4 to 5, Nick Gas was showing 2 episodes of Nick Arcade, a show I watched extensively as a kid. And nostalgia had already started then, and when I put this tape in here after Nick Arcade went off, things got serious. Cause I think I had seen it before that, but I saw a commercial on this tape for the Burger King Kids Club. Any of you guys remember that? And I discovered right then and there that nostalgia seems to work best at night and the wee hours of the morning. I've not been able to explain the reason for that, but it just works like that for me, and it still does. And and all throughout that week while being sick, I watched this tape over and over again. I have never enjoyed being sick more than that time. As strange as that sounds. In fact, on Thursday night of that week, when I was still sick, I had been lying in bed all week, and I could not sleep. This was the only time in my life I stayed up more than 24 hours. I could not sleep at all that night. So what did I do? Well, I turned the TV on to Nick Gas. I watched 2 episodes of Family Double Dare, 2 episodes of Nick Arcade, and more of this tape, of course. And like I said, that's the only time in my life I've ever enjoyed being sick. It's something you just can't explain, I guess. And then a couple months later, hold on. Actually, all through that time, during my earliest days of nostalgia, Carolina Circle Mall was still there. Its building, I mean. Huh. Siren outside, everything's alright. But, nobody knew when Carolina Circle Mall was going to be demolished. There was really no sign of it. And so I was pretty much paranoid the whole time, because before I became a nostalgic person, I could have really cared less about what they did with that building. But once I started being nostalgic, if I had to chain myself to that mall, I would have to keep them from tearing it down. But I was only 15. What could I have done? But it turns out my fears finally came true. On June 30th of 2005, demolition began on Carolina Circle Mall. My mom and I were going down Highway 29, going somewhere. I forget where. And we passed the mall. I noticed it was being picked apart by demolition crews. EME Demolition, by the way, here in Greensboro. And I knew right there it was over. It was all over. So I went the next day, that next morning, my dad took me down there, and I started taking pictures of the mall's demolition. Now, I couldn't get too close. I had the whole mall fenced off. But I went to the part where Montgomery Ward was, and you see, back then, back in the 90s, whenever I would go to Montgomery Ward, it had this certain smell to it, and I cannot explain that smell. It was musty, and it had kind of a hint of hairspray in it, because Montgomery Ward had a beauty salon up on their second level. And this store, as you know, had been closed for Okay, why did my laptop just crash? Must have gone to standby. Oh well. But when I was outside of Montgomery Ward that day when it was being torn down, even though it had been sitting abandoned for 3 years, I could still smell that musty smell with hairspray. And the store was not only closed, but being torn apart. It was surreal, folks. Very surreal. And not only that, but I found a piece of orange shag carpeting on the other side of the fence that was from Montgomery Ward. You see, throughout their 25-year life, they never got out of the 70s. So, I wanted to grab it, but since it was behind the fence, I couldn't get to it. And not only that, I also saw a Christmas wreath, which I believe was a decoration the mall used at Christmas time. And I wanted it too, but it was behind the fence, I couldn't get it. And plus, I didn't want to steal from a work zone. I wasn't even wearing a hard hat. They say that's what you always have to wear in those kind of areas. And so for the next couple of months, while the mall was being picked apart, I would go down there, keep an eye on it, and when I could, I would take a few pictures. And I finally decided right then and there that, you know, Carolina Circle Mall, it's a place that's about to become a thing of the past. I need to do all I can to preserve the memory of that mall. Not just my memories, but the memories of other people. And so in September of 2005, I decided I needed to start some kind of website about the mall. Unfortunately, I really didn't have the know-how to run a website at the time, so I looked no further than the Blogger service, which is, I believe, a part of Google now, and it's a site where you can create a blog. Anyway, I started the Carolina Circle City blog in September of 2005, and I still run it to this day. It's the address is right down there. And I started posting pictures, memories and history of the mall, and I really wasn't getting a whole lot of hits on it. Nobody seemed to have cared about it, except for a couple of people. And then, about a month later, the greatest thing that could possibly happen happened. I was at school, and I was letting my teacher, Miss Sandy, use my laptop to do a few business work while I was reading a book for school. And I happened to look over her shoulder when she signed on to my Yahoo page. I had Yahoo email at the time, and I happened to notice this this subject in one of my new emails titled, "Would you do an interview?" It's and I noticed that the person that sent it worked for the Greensboro News and Record, the main newspaper here in Greensboro. And for the rest of the day, I kept wondering, what could that be? What is this? What's in this email? I didn't really get a chance to check it at school. So when I got home, I checked my email, and I read it, and it was the editorial director from the News and Record found my website, my blog, I should say, about Carolina Circle Mall, Carolina Circle City, and he wanted to interview me about it. And I just pretty much flipped out right then and there. I gave him my phone number, he called me, we did the whole interview over the phone, and 2 days later on, when was it? 2 days later, on Sunday, October 23rd of 2005, the article was published in the paper, and boy did my email inbox overload that day. I was getting nothing but emails talking about the mall, their memories of it, and everyone was just so impressed with everything, and I was even getting pictures of the mall in my email. And I think what amazed people most was that this person who has all these memories and history of this mall is only 15 years old. So I had the time of my life that day. I was on cloud nine, and it lasted for about a week or so, and then I even met one of the managers of the mall back in the 70s. He was Mr. Van Massey, and we still exchange emails to this day. In fact, I think I'm friends with him on Facebook. And so anyway, from then on until for a few months, I really didn't get much more major nostalgia hits for a while. I still watch I still watch the Rugrats marathon and everything. I still research the mall, Carolina Circle, and which by that time had already been completely demolished, and the Walmart was under construction. And in May of 2006, before this, in March of 2006, my school, Pendle Hill Christian School, unfortunately went out of business. That's the story behind that is too much to explain, but all you need to understand is it closed, and I was without a school. But fortunately, my teacher, Miss Sandy, there at Pendle Hill, started a little homeschool, and I started going there. But anyway, in May of 2006, I started going through even more of my old home videos. And I found some videos I hadn't seen in a few years. It was the videos I hadn't seen that I hadn't seen in a while. This last time I had seen them was before I went nostalgic, which had been a year at the time, in 2006. And I found these old home videos my dad shot of me in the mid-90s. The first one I found, I believe I have it right here, was this. The label says, Billy, Christmas, 1994. And on that tape was pretty much what it says. It had a video of me from December 24th, 25th, and even the 26th of 1994 of Christmas that year. I was 5 years old, and up until this time, most of my nostalgia really didn't consist solely on childhood memories. It was mostly just nostalgia. You know, I was really into 90s nostalgia. But when I saw this tape of me from Christmas of 1994, I started to realize nostalgia is a little bit more than I thought. There's a little bit more to it. You know, nostalgia, you really need to think about your childhood. And I started thinking about my personal memories of the 90s. I started thinking of the going to the old Golden Corral over on Wendover Avenue, which is still here, by the way. It's been remodeled though, but and my parents' old cars, and my memories at Carolina Circle Mall, and it really said something to me. And I even decided to focus on a particular era of my life. Late 1994 and early 1995. And presently I like a little bit more of the 90s. But still, to this day, my favorite part of my life is late 1994 and early 1995. I just feel that part of my life, that's when most of the best stuff happened. And that's simply what I'm most nostalgic for. And in May of 2006, I found more than just this tape. Let's see if I have some of them here. Speaking of Easter coming up this Sunday, I found this tape. It's Billy, it says Billy, Easter 1995. It has me on Palm Sunday saying my little speech at church. Me participating in the Easter egg hunt after church. And then it shows me on Easter morning of 1995, sick as a dog. I don't really want to get into detail about that, but let's just say it's the first time I ever remember vomiting in my life.
Ooh.
Sweet dreams, folks. But, yeah, and I also started, at that time, listening to some of the music I listened to in late 1994 and early 1995. And this mostly consisted of Peter, Paul, and Mary. You see, back then I was a big fan of Peter, Paul, and Mary, the folk music group from the 60s. Particularly the song Puff the Magic Dragon, and I really don't want to go into detail. This is not the place to discuss this, and any hate comments, by the way, during this whole involving anything in this video will be strictly moderated and blocked, and if it's really, really bad, well, you're going to be, you yourself are going to get blocked. But, I really don't think that song is about marijuana or drug use or anything. It's simply about a song. It's simply a song about losing your childhood innocence. And of course, back in the 90s, I really didn't know the true meaning of that song. All I knew it was a song about a cute little dragon. And I was hooked onto that song. I would play that tape over and over again, especially that one song. I believe that tape was called 10 Years Together, The Best of Peter, Paul, and Mary, which I now have on CD. And from then on, I guess the rest you could say is history. Ever since then, many, many more things have happened to me that's made me more nostalgic. In January of 2009, my Carolina Circle City blog once again caught media attention, again by the News and Record. I forget who did it, but they published an even longer article about me and my passion for Carolina Circle Mall and its history. They even posted a picture, which, by the way, I forgot to mention this. In July of 2006, I acquired an original sign that was inside Carolina Circle Mall, a restroom sign, a sign directing customers to the mall's restrooms, which is currently in my former office. And anyway, in 2009, the newspaper took a picture of me standing with that sign, and they explained how I used to go there as a kid, and pretty much why I'm really into that kind of stuff. If I can still find the article on their website, I'll post a link in it in the description. But yeah. And then in 2010, I started really getting into vintage computers once again, and I still have my Legend 1510 Supreme at the time, which, by the way, is dead, but I'm getting back pretty soon. This store here opened here in Greensboro called Value Village, a thrift store, that sells every now and then old computers for a very, very, very reasonable price, usually under $10. And because of that, I've expanded my collection of Packard Bell computers. Yeah. And I'm also doing video trading, expanding my 90s video collection. In fact, I just completed one this week with my good friend Jay Fisher over here on YouTube, known as Howie Rules 86. And yeah, what else is going on right now with nostalgia? Let's see, there was something else I wanted to say. Something else I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, and starting in 2007, I still do this to this day, although not as much. I started going to the Greensboro Public Library, and I would go through old newspaper microfilm of news and record archives, and I would find these old newspaper ads from Carolina Circle Mall. So I started a little collection, and over the past 6 years or so, I've collected over 100 newspaper ads throughout the mall's history, which is pretty cool. So anyway, as of right now, I am still really into nostalgia. Back in February of 2013, February 22nd to be precise, I celebrated my 8th year in nostalgia. And do I regret doing this? No. And before I got into nostalgia, I really had no purpose in life. I mean, I was really into being a road geek and taking pictures of road signs, but I wasn't getting anything out of it. But with nostalgia, studying the past and studying my own personal childhood, I feel like I'm studying an old, lost civilization. Because when you think about it, the way we were back then, for the most part, can never exist ever again. What's happened has happened. You can't go back. And people always ask me, well, doesn't being nostalgic make you depressed? Well, no, it doesn't. On the contrary, it actually makes me happy, because I look back on these memories I had growing up, and I really, I couldn't be happier. I've had a good life. So the way I see it, if you had a happy childhood, what's so horrible about looking back at it? It's, perfectly okay with me. And like I said, I'm still doing research on my childhood, and as a matter of fact, what I'm currently working on at the moment is finding pictures of the inside of old Golden Corral restaurants from the 90s, similar to the one I went to as a kid, which, like I said, is still here. However, it has been remodeled several times since the 2000s. And so its original configuration, I can't find any pictures of it or any other like it. In fact, I remember the buffet line had these green wooden signs above them. And I would give anything to find pictures of an old Golden Corral from the 90s. And unfortunately, I've been searching for about a month now, and I've pretty much come up with nothing. I've gone all over Google, but like I said, maybe someday. And I know a lot of you people are still, even though you now know why I like nostalgia, you're still gonna think I'm weird. But in life, we're gonna come across people that like different things than us, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, if everybody in the world was the same, it would be a very boring life to live. It's a big, big green world God has created, and everyone's their own unique person, and I think that's just amazing. And so And I also want to leave you, before I finish, with a saying I coined back in May of 2006 when I found those old home videos of my childhood from 1994 and 1995. Your past is a very cherished thing. Please, please hold on to it. Because, yeah, why not? That's all I have to say about that. And the past 8 years of being into nostalgia, I've met so many friends because of this, gone to so many places, and I wouldn't trade any of that for the world. And I will leave you with that. Thank you for watching this video. I think it's gone on for at least an hour, maybe even longer. I haven't been keeping time. But this is Billy Core signing off on March 28th, 2013. Goodbye, everybody.